Hello and welcome to Women in Manufacturing Association's Hear Her Story podcast. My name is Allison and Kari. I'm the president and founder of the Women in Manufacturing Association, and I'm so excited to host this podcast and to get to highlight the amazing accomplishments of women in industry. Today, we are recording this episode during the WIM 2024 Summit Conference being held here in Boston, Massachusetts, with more than 2,000 participants at this year's event. And I'm so excited to be putting a spotlight today on one attendee who is already doing great things in the community and industry. Kari Mahaffey is the Senior Vice President of North America Applications, High Tech and Manufacturing at Oracle Corporation. She is a leader in the sales and digital innovation space and speaks publicly on diversity in technology. Our conversation today is going to focus on her career journey and her professional path, along with her passion for helping women advance in their roles. Please join me in welcoming Kari to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so fun to see my team here, too. I love it. Thank you for coming.
Well, this is so fun to get to not only have a conversation with you that will reach many people beyond today's summit, but also to be interactive with our guests, a group and crew of them that are here with us in Boston. So for Hear Her Story, we always like to start a little bit kind of as to where you started and to highlight your professional pathway and journey and how you got to your current seat and role. So tell us a little bit about that.
Wow. Well, I guess one of the big things I think was a huge influence on me is I grew up in the trucking business in the Midwest. So my dad had about 15 trucks on the road, and I, from that, a very young age, loved logistics, transportation, manufacturing, going to distribution centers. So all the stuff that we learn about here and we're part of in this group is part of my upbringing. So that was a big part of being in a male-dominated industry from a young age. Trucking, there were no women in it, but I loved being a part of that. And then I went into sales after college, moved from South Dakota to Los Angeles, and I became a door-to-door salesperson of long distance to businesses. And I had a pretty rough territory. It was Carson and Compton. If you live in LA, you know those are areas you don't necessarily want to be in heels and a skirt walking door-to-door. However, I was unique. So I did a lot of business back then, and I found that sales for women at that time, it was 1991, it was a great career path. It was a way to get started in an industry, that side of technology, that was very male-oriented. But sales, you even the playing field. You just do, because if you have a great product and you represent it well and you know your stuff, you can sell it, male or female. And I found oftentimes I was so unique in selling to those trucking businesses in Compton and Carson and Los Angeles, or those manufacturing companies back in the day, that they would often give me a listen just because they were shocked that I rolled in, right? So I think back then, in my early 20s, it was an asset, and I found it's been an asset to this day because you think differently, you are looked upon a little differently, and people want to hear your story, right? Here I am on this podcast. So grew up in technology sales and just continued to, move through that space. Got to Oracle years ago, and it was all men. There were no female leaders. And I was one of the first female leaders in Los Angeles, or, in the North American team in 2004. So I started leading teams in 2004, and I remember my executive vice president at that point, he said, how do I get more women to do this job? You're doing well. There's 2 of you now in my organization. And I said, you have to help them let it be okay to be a woman in this business, but also my life is set up. My husband has stayed home since we had kids. Like, there was no way for me to keep rising the ranks and try and have really hard dueling careers. I was like, you've got to make sure you make a space for women to be parents and wives and mothers and all the different things that we do. It's okay to talk about it and make space for it. That's what you could do. So it wouldn't be so abnormal. And so from there, I think it just got better and better, for all of us at that time, at Oracle anyway.
You brought up tons of things that I think we can thread into. And I love the comment you just made around normalizing what that real life experience is if you are trying to, which I often say, integrate, not balance, being a professional person with an aspiring and rising career, but at the same time, for many of us, being a parent at that same time, which can be challenging. Without support, without a plan, it's really difficult. And I think employers, as they're recruiting, need to be more open, honest, and aware of obviously some of those unique challenges that parents, whether they're female or male, face as they're trying to kind of do both. So I'm sure over the course of your very esteemed career that there have been certain moments, maybe some pivotal moments or decisions that have significantly impacted and shaped the leader that you are today. Is there one or two in particular that stand out for you that really made a dramatic impact or shifted your career in a certain direction?
Well, 20 years ago in tech sales, as a female leader, there weren't any of us. And there were a lot of what you can imagine tech sales was male-dominated, similar to the industry we're all in today. That's changing, but there were people that would come to me and say, I just don't feel comfortable in some of these other organizations. And it made me realize I have to stop chasing that male version of what a leader is in technology sales and create the culture that I want to lead and be a part of and where I would want to work. I needed to be other. So I didn't want to hear about all the partying and the things that were going on at night at different offsites. I stayed away from that, and I just thoughtfully built the culture that I wanted to be a part of if I was a rep or if I was a leader. And so I did that, and I was very loud about what my culture was and what it was not. And I think at that time, that was my first couple years as a leader in 2006, 2005, people started to, and I think it's what she said in the room, don't worry about chasing that 10% that will never follow you. Who do you want to be? What do you want to lead? What kind of organization do you want to be a part of? And to me, it's all about the culture you build and you have to be thoughtful about as a leader. And at that time, it was incredibly unique and different. And so many people became drawn to be part of a culture where they felt comfortable, where they didn't have to stay out till 2 a.m, going to the strip clubs, where they felt like they could talk about their family and they could be the person they wanted to be. And we created space for that. And it was different at that time. And I'm really glad of that because now I've never really wavered from it, but I had to be really meticulous about what it meant. And I think if you're a female leader in a male-dominated space, you have a great advantage in that. But you have to think about what is other about what I want to build. How can I be different so I can draw top talent to an organization that maybe looks a little bit different than the others? And you'll find people that want diversity, want different types of opinions and thoughts, will be drawn to that. And you will get the most high-performing, diverse, motivated team that you can because you've prescribed it. You've put the direction out there. And people will follow you if the right people will. And that, I think, was the biggest moment in my life where I had to realize as a leader, what did I want my team and my organization to look and feel like? And that was different at that time. We didn't talk about culture in 2004 in tech sales. We didn't. We just chased deals. We didn't care the outcomes of the customers. We were just whatever. But we were meticulously, we crafted what we wanted, and I built it with the team, what we wanted to be. And we continued to draw on that. Even to this day, I do my leadership offsite at least once a year, hopefully twice, where we continue to innovate on culture so that with the new leaders coming in, it's inclusive of their ideas as well. I think that's really important because then that draws the people to you that should be with you, right? So you don't always feel like, there's folks that just don't want to be part of something that you're building.
I think that's wise, and I think so very visionary of you to many years prior to a movement where we talk more regularly about culture, to yourself to be aware that this culture in sales is really maybe only conducive or of interest to a certain population, and creating one that looks different, feels different, and obviously is going to be a more safe space and supportive space for more people to stay in it who don't want to partake in some of those evening late night activities and where that isn't their comfort zone. And so that opens up huge opportunities for more people to go into sales or to go into those settings. So kudos to you for doing that.
We still have fun, though.
Yeah.
I will say.
Hey, listen,
it's not a party
women like
pooper
to have
situation.
fun.
We still have fun.
Yes, we're not the Debbie Downers of the world. We like to have fun. But I think, again, it's a different kind of fun.
Yeah.
In maybe an even more respectful way. So as we look at, your vision as a leader, I know that you're really passionate around encouraging women in tech to move into leadership. So where did this passion stem from? And then what are some of the vehicles that you're currently using and or deploying to help more women rise in leadership in tech?
Well, back when I first got promoted in 2004, it took an ally, a man, who I still is very good friends with me, who saw my abilities or felt like I should do this. And he said, what do you want to do? What do you want to do when you grow up? I really had no idea. And he said, you're a leader. You need to lead a team. And he believed in me. It was very unique at that time. There weren't any others. And so he kept believing in me and was my mentor. He was always like, 3 bullet points. Don't go on and on. 3 bullet points. That's all I want. I want that in an email. I want it when you call me on the phone. I don't want your long, long stories, And I was like, wow, okay, thank you. That's good to know. But that shaped executive communication from the time I was first in a leadership role. And so I now today am always looking to mentor women, men, diversity. I want diversity in organizations because I think we get a better outcome. The unique seats at the table, we get a better outcome. So I've watched my diversity stats. When I came into this role, I got promoted to this role a year ago, June. In Your Voice survey, the overwhelming thing that was bad about my organization coming into it and getting promoted into it was a lack of diversity. That's just what was said about this organization. So I knew I had a big job to do and I had to change it. So I've been mentoring people in this space, not just women, for a long time because I find that I get really great feedback and advice from younger, whatever that means, talent or diverse talent. So mentoring for me is really a big part of my day-to-day. It takes a lot of time, as my EA will tell you, but I learn a lot from the mentorship I do because they continue to keep me current. And then those folks that want to potentially go into leadership know that I will help them figure out a path if that's what they want to do. I'll kind of say these are the things I think you need to complete. We have a lot of great things internally that you need to go and find. I'll help you find those trainings so you at least know how to do these things within the law. You need to learn how to manage a team just legally, all of that. But then I always tell somebody, if you're thinking about going into leadership, no matter what the group or organization you will run is, you have to think about the 3 or 4 things that are non-negotiable for you. Leaders have followers, period. So if you don't have things that matter to you, that you hold up as those things, you'll manage people, but you won't have followers. You won't have people that want to come into your organization from outside or inside your organization. So I think mentoring is probably the number one thing I do. I do it at universities that I've gone to. I do it within our organization as a whole. I get asked to do it a lot because even male, female, I've got a guy who I mentor in Dubai who just got his first management role. He's excited. We worked through it to get there. Those are incredibly just energy inducing for me to have people that continue to push themselves out of their comfort zone, male, female, whatever, but to go and do it the right way and be meticulous about what they want to build. I think you can't just raise your hand and say, I want to be a leader and have no idea what you want to build. You can manage, probably, right? But if you want to lead, you have to think about the things that are just non-negotiables for you. That's, for me anyway, that's what I would say.
I think that's great advice. I think to lead, you need to be driven by some type of passion. And so I think to be able to find and identify what that passion is, and then as well to have vision so that others would want to follow in whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. So I know Oracle is an outstanding company, and I'm sure they do lots of things and have initiatives as it relates to women. Can you tell us a little bit about what the company does present day to support women in the workplace and as well their development?
I would say, there's our OWL group, Oracle Women Leadership, which has different groups. I know the one in Burlington, where everyone's from, is a big one. There's a lot of, we talk about imposter syndrome, talk about work-life balance, which I think is an outdated term. I think it's just work-life integration. I think if you go for balance, you're going to be depressed all the time because you'll never get there, right? It's just integration. But from there, we do also top talent mentoring programs, and Harvard Business Review does training programs for our top leadership, but that isn't just strictly for females. What I'm finding more is a grassroots kind of we talk to each other. I'm looking at some of you that have made career decisions that were like, let's talk about that career decision. Is it best for me? Where do I want to take myself? So we also have a bit of a network of those of us that have worked together for years, that we lean into each other's career decisions and home life decisions. I mean, I just had a manager who was having his 4th child, and he called me when his wife was pregnant, and he said, do you think I can still try and do this second-line role? And I said, 4 kids is a lot. Your wife works. You're going to have to, you're going to have to figure out how are you going to balance this. I'll help you. We'll cover for each other. You can't be there. I'll be there. I'm an empty nester now. So whether it's women or men or whatever, I think it's just okay to bring it up in conversation. We are all trying to balance a lot. I'm launching my nest. They're all gone, but now I've got my mother who's got dementia. So she's with me. So I just think it's okay to talk about this stuff because we're all going through it, and then it can become a safe place, male or female. But at Oracle, we do have programs. I think they're too small. So I think for us as women, a lot of us that are in this room, we have to own it, and we have to encourage, and we have to say you can do it. Because I think one of the things Sam said in there was, don't wait for everything to be worked out. As women, we're like, let me just go down every angle and figure out if I can actually do it. And my husband will say to me, my God, just shut up and go. Just shut up and go. Do it. Do the thing. And I'm like, oh, thank God I married you. That's the other thing, is your partner. That's one of the things I talk to women in business and college campuses that ask me, how did you do this? I built my life to do this. I married someone who was incredibly supportive. He ended up staying home. Now, it doesn't work for everybody, but you think about it with your daughters. If you want to build a life like this where you have great opportunity, marry someone who's supportive. And make sure that they create space for your career and what you want to do as well. I think that's probably the number one thing you can do. It starts there, and then you build the ecosystem of women and men that want to build what you want to build, and they become the group that you lean on through every decision that you make. And then to my boss that I have right now, I said to him a year ago, there aren't any. Well, there are now. I think there's 3 of us SVPs in my group at Oracle, and I started one-on-ones with him a year ago, and I said, if you ever need me to do something more for you, call me. And we were having that cadence so he knew who I was, because my current boss at the time, I was doing great for him. He didn't want me to leave, let's be honest. So I had to go to his boss and say, let's have one-on-ones. I want to get to know you and what you're looking for, because I want a shot at the bigger thing. And you do have to continue to create, he's a guy, incredibly supportive of women in this business, but I had to go and ask so that he would meet with me quarterly, give me his advice about what he was looking for, and then when I felt I built up enough credibility, I said, let me know when something more comes along, because I'd love to do something bigger with you and impact your team more. And that, thankfully, I did that, and then I got this role, which was amazing and came really rapid fire, and has been a big learning experience ever since, which I'm grateful for.
There's so much great advice there. I think just to share or to expand a little bit on a few things. So one thing that I think you spoke around was having the right partner or supporters. I mean, having that infrastructure of support is critical. And for all of us, it may look very different. I think my second part that I loved was you sharing around vocalizing your needs or the things that you're challenged with. So I went through a situation with my 2 kids and had them very close together, was struggling, planning to resign from my position and vocalized my intentions. And before I resigned, my boss said, listen, we can make this work. We want to retain you. So if you're struggling with caregiving, parenting, whatever those things may be, illness, wellness, vocalize those to your teams before you make a rash decision to just altogether leave, because likely they will work with you or try to accommodate those situations. And I think just vocalizing what you're going through. I think that, there's lots of challenges. I think that's one of the positives of the pandemic was that it brought our whole person to work. It's just not Allison who serves in this certain seat. It's Allison who has 2 teens, went through a divorce, certain things that are happening that occur for all of us. And if we can be more authentic and real about the things that we're challenged with and our needs, then I think our workplaces will be better places for us long term. So you, I'm sure, have been given tons of advice over the course of your career. And if you had to leave our audience who are listening today and as well live with us here in Boston, what is the best piece of advice you've been given that you would want to impart to our audience?
That's a hard one. I do think just being authentic. I think being who you are and holding true to that. Because then when you're not in the room, when you're a leader and you have a big organization and someone needs to make a decision that normally they would need you for and they can't reach you, they would know what your decision would be. Because you've been so authentic, you've spoken your truth, they would know. Because there's hard decisions you face every day in leadership. And if you're not authentic about who you are and what you believe and what you want to build for your team, nobody knows. So how can you ever build a more broad team and without sharing your leadership principles, the things that guide you? Just be open and honest, I think, is the best thing you can do. Create space for authenticity in your organization, because there are so much that everyone's going through at a given time that they don't bring to work. But to be open and honest about challenges here and there, I think that's the best thing you can do. And it will help your team scale because they know how you are, what you'd think in this moment. If it's a decision that needs to be made in that 30-second time window, they at least have a bit of a North Star because of your authenticity. I think that's a great thing you can do for your team.
I love that. So be authentic. And likewise, those folks that report to you will then also bring their authentic self
I hope so.
to the workplace and to the work they do. So thank you, Kari, for being a part of
Allison.
our Hear Her Story live recording here at Summit 2024. We will now open it up if anyone in the audience would like to ask a question of Kari, and before we wrap up today's episode. So I will go down with traveling mic if by chance any of you would like to ask a question or two.
Okay.
So think of your hot topic or pressing issue, and I will come travel down to see if we have a few questions.
Okay. I think most of you in the front rows probably, you already know most of the answers.
Raise your hand if you have a question, and I can get some steps and make my way to you.
I'm Rose. I'm from Oracle. And Kari, that's just like all the things you talked about in your history. Some stories I didn't know, right? But moving from managing to leading, what are some of the things you think made you authentic about getting people to like voluntarily follow you? I know I'm one of them. I can't put my finger on it, but
well, so it was interesting when we were during the pandemic when we had to hire about 20 people at one time. And you guys said, I need you to interview some of these people because we're in an incredible rash for talent. We can't get them. And they all said, they were coming right out of our university program, and they said, what are you going to do for me? How are you going to develop me? What is your culture like? And this is before I'd really put it on paper. And I thought, oh my gosh, I made some stuff up or threw it, came from the hip. But then I realized we do a lot. We're intentional about it. Now I just need to speak that. So you'll notice every all hands call at the beginning of a fiscal, we come on and we say who we are. I think that's really important because managing is all that bits and bytes that happen, emails you got to respond to, customer escalations, travel, all of that. But I think being intentional about what you want to build for a team, that's how you get followers. And Jen Morgan, I worked with her at SAP. She's now CEO of some big company. And she had said, leaders have followers. If they don't, they're not a leader. And she was one of my mentors way back. And that stuck with me. So I thought, when this young talent was coming, saying, what am I going to do for them in their career? It was about being intentional about how I would lead them, what they would get. They'd be the most empowered, enabled team in this business. And that drew, we got, 20, 25 people on the team within a month, that was hard. That was a lot of talking. But then we decided, let's be intentional as we go forward about what we want to build. And I think that's how you start to build leadership, because people expect a certain thing from you, a certain culture, a certain style, if that makes sense.
That's great. I think we've got a question over here, and make sure you introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Kathy. I'm your next speaker, so don't go away.
Okay. Yay.
I'm a career Air Force veteran, and what I particularly loved what you said is talk about what your culture is and what it is not. Can you give me a snippet of what you would say to people to help them understand and to be intentional?
Great question.
What to say to people, or for them to clarify? I think the most important thing is to say what it isn't, to some extent, because I don't know where it's like where you are, but everyone, to what Sam said, knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy in this business. And it's similar in manufacturing. I grew up in trucking, very similar. And so I was always like, I want the best athlete. I want the best athlete. I don't care where they come from. I don't care how much experience they have, but I want an athlete that fits our culture. And I can't say everything that our culture is not up here, because there was a lot of things that were legally not great 20 years ago. And I had to just say that I'm never going to be that. I'm never going to be a proponent of that. I'm never going to approve that expense report when you do that thing. So you don't want to be on my team if that is really important to you, right? So I was and yes, we still have fun and things go on. I don't want to know about it. I don't want to have it as part of our culture. And usually those folks don't stay very long, because we're intentional about how we invest in our team, really across that full team. And anyone is willing or can bring ideas for training, bring ideas for development. I have an open door. Every time a rep wins a deal, I call them personally. I make sure they know who I am and what they're a part of. So I also try and lead from the front in that, because I think it's important to communicate what you believe in and what you expect, and and they'll know what you're about when they talk to you personally. And I think as you get bigger teams, it's hard to do that, but that matters to me. So I do.
Well, this has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you for the audience interaction and questions.
Yeah.
And Kari, thank you for sharing your
Thanks,
story
Allison.
and being a
This
part
is
of
great.
your story. So
Thanks,
thank
everyone.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Hear Her Story, a podcast produced by the Women in Manufacturing Association. Be sure to share, review, and subscribe to Hear Her Story on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen.